Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Midwest Mythos. And guys, I got another great one for you guys this week. But before I let you know who that is and what we're going to be talking about, unless you're on YouTube, then you can already see it. I got to give a shout out once again to this awesome company, the Soul Squatch. They sent me a hat. I've been talking back and forth with them. Guys, I'm a big melon fella. I was really worried about getting a new hat in the mail because hats just don't fit me. I got about 3 of them back there just because I like hats, but it's real hard to find one that fits me. I have to special order them. But I was like, you know what? I really want one of these hats. I've heard great things about them. And guys, it is one of the most comfy hats I've ever had. Fits perfectly on me. Real nice, breathable back. You know, I got all this hair up here. It gets a little warm. This hat keeps my head cool. So you know what, guys? They ain't a sponsor or anything like that. I'm just sharing a great product that found me and I found them. Mutual friend. And I think they got an awesome thing going on. So you guys should go check out their stuff. And if you guys can hear a baby crying above me, sorry, my daughter's learning how to walk right now. So there's some bumps and bruises. But with that being said, guys, this evening I got Brad from the Awakend podcast. Me and him met on the Sunday night double play podcast live. That, you know, Hank the Tank and Chef Kyle, man, awesome dudes. They introduced Brad and I together, and we had a great time then. So I was like, you know what? Why don't you come this way? Let's have a good one-on-one instead of a roundtable session. How you doing tonight, brother? Oh,
I think of the song Midwest Swing. It's an old rap song from the early 2000s. It's a Midwest Swing. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but that's what I think of every time I think of Midwest Mythos, dude. So yeah, man, I'm excited to be here because I always have. It's hard for me. You and I were talking before the show. It's hard for me to do like solo shows by myself because I got to look in the camera and I'm also trying to remember everything, and there's a lot of ums and uhs and stutters and all this other stuff. So anytime I can get on a show like yours and kind of vent and let all this stuff out, it's really awesome, man. So I'm happy to be here and talking to you today about like AI and all this stuff. Because I could like a little bit about me real quick. My name is Brad. I'm from the Awakend podcast. I'm the host of the Awakend podcast. I talk a lot about like basically everything that involves waking up. My journey started about 10, 15 years ago. I just started noticing things, right? It was like, oh, that's weird. This is weird. That's weird. And then, my journey went from conspiracy, started noticing some conspiracy type things with political stuff. And then I kind of went into the paranormal stuff and I started noticing a lot about paranormal stuff, went down the path of like the 33rd parallel and started researching a lot of that stuff. That's where I'm from. I'm born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina on the 33rd parallel. So, and then that led to spirituality, and the purpose of my show is to have a platform to present new ideas for those who are waking up. For those who are just starting to notice, I'm trying to bring on people that can kind of talk about subjects that are like very simple for people to understand. Like you and I might know about the books of Enoch, but there's a lot of people who don't know about the books of Enoch. So just having someone on just to kind of give an introduction to some of this stuff. And so I like to think that my show is a platform for people to help people wake up and to find community amongst other people that are waking up. Because when you do wake up from the deep sleep that you're into the world, it can be a little bit shocking. It's like waking someone up when they're, when they are sleepwalking almost. It's like, when you first start waking up, it's like you feel like you're alone. Nobody understands you, all this other stuff. So, having a community and a platform that I can kind of share my opinions and share my journey, because I'm learning a lot of things as well as I go. I don't know everything. I'm researching things. I'm learning new things every day. So yeah, it all leads, the road leads down to spirituality for me. And that's where it kind of comes in with, like AI and fallen angels and all this stuff, man. And, once you start understanding that this is like spiritual warfare that we're in, then it becomes pretty clear what's going on. Then you can't unsee it. It's like, oh, that's it. Yeah. It's like, so yeah, man, thanks for letting me come on the show and talk about this stuff. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Anytime. Thank you for coming on it. Uh, I know we're gonna have some fun, and it's awesome that your platform that you like. When I first heard about you, I was like, "Oh, this is an interesting name." I want to check it out. And when I just started listening to it, I was like, "Oh, this is not anything like what I thought it was gonna be." I almost kind of thought it was gonna be like some yoga kind of podcast, not
Yeah.
that I'm into that stuff, but I was like, I keep on seeing this everywhere, so I'm gonna give it a listen. And then when I started hearing you speak about, like the Nephilim, the fallen angels, all that kind of stuff, I was like, oh, it's this kind of awaken. And I was like, all right, this dude's pretty cool. And then a few weeks later, we're sitting there having a conversation. I was like, oh yeah, this dude's helping raise an army right here.
Well, like if you go to my website, theawakenpodcast.com, I have a definition for the word awaken on there. It's actually it's a list of the different definitions of awaken, and one of them is rouse from sleep, cause to stop sleeping. Another one is stop sleeping. One of them is rouse a feeling. Another one is regain consciousness. Another one is become aware of or come to the realization of. And then another one is make someone aware of something for the first time. So like that's pretty much it. It's a I'm trying to present information and bring light to certain subjects, I guess you could say, and help people come to the realization of certain topics. And my avenue is like energy and frequency and ley lines and electromagnetic spectrum and all this other stuff, right? And physics and metaphysics and stuff like that. And I kind of tie that into paranormal stuff. I'm trying to help explain how I see it, what's going on with, I'm marrying sort of the paranormal with the physics and the metaphysics and stuff like that and the spirituality, and it's all making a lot of sense to me. And I hope that I hope that I'm not, you know too egotistical by thinking that I'm right about something or whatever. I just when you just go where the data takes you, or where things start to make a little bit more sense, and then you start to see, like, again, like, oh, there's a bigger agenda out there, and there are people who are hiding information from us. They're hiding information about who we are as people, as human beings, as light beings, which is what we are. We are, human, HUE, color beings that can manifest. So man means manifest, right? And hue means light beings, color beings. And when you start understanding that, it's like, oh, we're light beings, and we're powerful, and we're made in God's image, and therefore we are creators, right? We have that unique ability to create. And if you think about it, God's light, let's just look at it as the sun. I'm not saying that is what the case is, but this is sort of how I see it. Is like, let's say that God's light is the sun, and when you shine a white light, if you take a white light, and I have a prism right here, and if you shine a white light through that prism, it will refract into the colors of the rainbow. You'll see all the colors of the rainbow. That's how that's how prisms work. So what I think is happening is, I think that the ionosphere above us is an actual prism. It's a layer of plasma, and I think that plasma is a prism. And when God's light shines through that prism, it refracts into us, what we are, and we're in that little tiny sliver of light, that little tiny sliver of visible light on the electromagnetic spectrum. We're in the 0.0035% of light on the electromagnetic spectrum. That means that 99.665%, or whatever it is, 965%, that means that 99.965% is the paranormal. It's the spiritual around us that we can't see. So we are, in a sense, you could look at us as being the paranormal ones, right? Because we're in this little very it's God's promise. It's the rainbow. That's what that is. It's to protect us from the evil that's going on around us, that 99.965%. So we are in this little bubble of color and light and vibrations and all that stuff. Sound and light is the same thing. And
Mhm.
so, when God created everything, he spoke everything into existence and things like that, right? So we're just vibrations, man. That's all we are. And that's what it kind of comes down to for me is like, and I just said we were light and then I said we're vibrations. Well, let me explain that a little bit, I guess. Light, or at the center in the subatomic levels of the nucleus of an atom or a proton, you have what's called quarks, and these quarks are vibrating and they create vibrations. And when those vibrations get excited, they create a wavelength. They create a frequency of a wavelength, and that frequency of a wavelength creates energy, right? It creates light, which creates energy, and that energy creates matter. So we are matter. We are in the material. That's what we are, right? So light. We're packets of light that are created, that are vibrating into matter. Everything else is ethereal. It's matter versus ethereal. So we are in this little, again, this little packet of energy, this little quanta of light that, you know, these things, these 99.965% of the paranormal or the spiritual around us, they want to get into where we are because we're in God's promise. We're in this perfect vibration of like, think about how comfortable we are. It's not hot here. It's not cold here. If you're anything outside of the visible light, it's freezing or it's burning up. So hell could be both cold and hot in that regard. And so, yeah, we're in this, like I would almost look at this as a heaven or a Garden of Eden or something. I don't even know how to explain it because, and I don't think anybody can, to be honest with you, but I know I'm kind of talking a lot, man. I'll let you.
No, dude. I was expecting to. I knew at one point you were gonna have my jaw like hanging open for a second. I wasn't expecting it in the first 10 minutes, man. The whole we live in that point. What was it? 395%, and everything.
0.035%. So it's a very tiny sliver of
dude,
the electromagnetic spectrum.
That one sentence just gave me a whole new perspective and outlook on certain things that I've been looking at and just thinking about, and it really does also pinpoint how meticulous, how detailed every little, like, I guess it adds more to that when God says he knows every hair on your head. Like, oh, it goes much deeper than that. Like, there's so much that's going around, and I know you talk about portals and stuff a lot too. Like, all right, all these different degrees outside of this Goldilocks zone that we're in, the vibrations moving through the portals. That's how we act, getting all this. I mean, I might be getting ahead of myself and stuff like that. I'm definitely getting ahead of myself, but man, that's awesome, man. And I'll tell you one thing, I'm a listener, man. That's why I started this podcast. Is I love to listen to people, what they have to say, whether it's personal stories, something that they're interested in, something that they research in. So I am never going to be upset for you can sit here and talk for an hour straight and I'm just going to sit here and smile and take it all in. I am not going to be upset or anything like that.
I appreciate that, man. It means a lot because I don't feel like I know everything for sure, but I do feel like I'm at least on the right path. And whenever I say things like that, it resonates with people, and they, like I was at Bohemian Grove with Doc Brown, and people resonated with what I pretty much said that same thing on stage, and everyone resonated with it. And so I was getting people coming up to me after the show, a lot of people, and it made me feel good because I was like, okay, maybe I'm on to something here, and but again, I think that everything outside of us is trying to get in any way they can. And we live in that, again, that little, if you look at the electromagnetic spectrum, if we live in that little sliver of light, that means that in the radio waves, in the microwaves, in the infrared waves, that means it's real slow. For those who don't know, like a radio wave is the length of New York City. That's how long and slow it is. Okay. The closer you get to visible light, the steadier it is. The more, it's it's regulated better. It's like a perfect balance. It's a perfect, anything from uh, 20 hertz to 528 hertz, and 528 hertz is like the vibration of love, essentially, and anything less than 20 hertz is the vibration of fear. And so when you learn that like tigers growl at a 4 hertz, uh, you know, uh, subsonic or infrasonic, I guess you could say, sound, then you start to understand like, oh, fear vibrates low and love vibrates high because God is light and light vibrates faster, right? So it's like it makes more sense, right? And
Dude.
love.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead and jump in, man.
Man, well, I mean, you've talked to Doc about our little expedition, and
I did,
we
yeah.
talked a little bit, man, and I didn't I didn't even I've never thought about that the frequency of fears that in the infrasound is on that frequency. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you've heard things that other people haven't. So
Yeah, I
that
mean that's what that is. And when you hear a Bigfoot growl or whatever, that's what you're hearing. That's why it freezes you in your tracks, right? I mean, I've never had that experience, but that's what I've heard.
it
And
does.
yeah, and so when you hear or when you interact with something and you feel that you instantly feel fear and frozen and all that stuff, like that's what you're feeling. You're feeling that vibration. And it's the same thing when you like if you go dance, for example, and like I like to dance, man. I've gone to nightclubs and stuff. I'm 42 now. I've gone to nightclubs my whole life, to be honest with you. Not now that I'm married and all that stuff, but when I was younger, I used to go dance a lot. And you can see it in people actually in real time. And this is kind of a different. It's not really like the fear we were just talking about with Bigfoot, but like if you see someone standing on the side of the wall at a dance club, that fear has got them in this state of like frozen. They don't want to move. They don't, and they see you out there living life and dancing and having a good time, and girls are on you and all this other stuff. They get kind of jealous about that. And I'm just using that as an illustrative example, right? But it's like people who are frozen in fear are not living in that light of God, right? They're always in that low vibration of like fear and anxiety, and the devil wants to keep you in that low vibration because that's
Mhm.
where they can attach. It's dark and cold. It's super dark and super cold there, and they will do anything to get into God's light. And so if they keep you at a low vibration with alcohol and drugs and all this stuff, it's easier to attach themselves to you, right? If you
Right.
stay in this fear and anxiety and drugs and alcohol and all this stuff, it's easy to attach themselves to you. And so the further you are away from that, if you're at the 528 hertz, and I mean this, man, I truly mean this. If you're living in a high vibrational state where you're full of love and gratitude in life, and you appreciate things, man, it's really hard for them to get to you, because you're so far away from them on the vibrational scale. And you have to understand when you look at it from that perspective, it's like it makes a lot of sense because everything is dark and light, right? It's good and evil. That's what it's all about. And so the darkness is really dark and really cold, and the light is a lot warmer, a lot faster, a lot more love. You feel like, you know, uh, you just feel better. Like when you tell someone, nice pants or you smell good or something like that, it makes you feel good and it makes them feel good. So when you live in that love and that vibration of light and love, then these things can't get to you, man. And I think that really bothers them, so they'll try to do spiritual warfare on you in some way. They might make your cameras glitch or your computer shut down or whatever, and they just keep, because they can't get to you. That's just the bottom line. It's just and they know, and that's why these things never mess with people who say the name of Christ, because the name of Christ is the embodiment of light. So light, when you shine light in the darkness, it makes it go away. And so yeah, man, that's kind of how I look at it. It's a tug of war between God and the devil, literally, in terms of the electromagnetic spectrum. Literally, Jesus is trying to pull you this way and the devil's trying to pull you that way. So
Well, let me ask you this question, because I don't. Maybe somebody's brought this up to you. So to me, after hearing that makes perfect sense of why as we get higher vibrations, once we get past, the critical point, we start getting into gamma waves and stuff, X-rays. Like, that's why that makes sense to why cancer and all these super negative like things start happening. It is that two sides of the spectrum, and then we live in that. I'm gonna keep on calling it that Goldilocks zone. That
That's what it
perfect,
is.
that perfect, perfect place, and it's
Well, if you think about it, that's the analogy for life. Actually, it's like if you eat too much, you'll be fat. If you don't eat enough, you'll be too skinny. That's why you have to be in moderation for everything. You can't
yeah,
have more than what God gave you. If you have too much of something, it's very important that you give it away, that you shed it off, because if you have too much, I think it can cause an imbalance in you and an imbalance in the world, really. And
mhm,
so that's why I said it's just very important to make sure you stay balanced. Like you don't want to have we're in this perfect zone, stay in that perfect Goldilocks zone. You know what I mean? If you can, and try to do right and try to live on that higher side of the Goldilocks zone versus the lower side.
yeah, dude, that's
But yeah, when you look at this stuff, dude, it's like when you understand it from that perspective, and then you look at like you mentioned portals a while ago, right? Like I look at places like Stonehenge and Avebury, and believe it or not, they're discovering places in like Lake Michigan. They found a 9,000-year-old Stonehenge like stone
oh, don't get me
circle
started on that.
that's at the bottom of the lake, right? And it's like I think that at some point all of these places were flooded or just purposely destroyed, like Göbekli Tepe and like Stonehenge was knocked over and all this stuff. I think that these places were purposely hidden and destroyed. Excuse me, because I'm starting to think that maybe some government is good because and now that sounds like an oxymoron, right? It's like government good. It's like, but I think maybe there has been a deliberate um, people are trying to destroy these places deliberately because these are the points. These are the X points. These are the plasma portals that I talk about. X points is what NASA calls them.
Mhm.
But these are the points where electromagnetic energies are higher than normal. And these things can kind of come into our reality through these X points, right? Because we're kind of zipped up in this electromagnetic spectrum, right? Where electrical and magnetic fields flow perfectly like a zipper. It really is like a zipper. They flow perfectly together. They never touch. But when you have another magnetic field interacting with that magnetic field, it causes a separation, right? And so
Right.
that little separation is like a portal. It's like it's kind of chaotic. It's like this geodynamo. If you know what a geodynamo is, like when and I'm gonna just use like a river for example. If a river and another stream meets, they kind of create this little swirl. That's kind of what portals are. The electromagnetic energy interacts with another electromagnetic energy, and it creates a little separation in that zipper, and that's where these things kind of come through. So I think that these places are being destroyed intentionally, because I think that portals used to be these Stonehenge and all this stuff used to be places where people would go to get hidden knowledge and hidden information, right?
Right.
And that was the whole purpose of why God flooded the earth, according to the books of Enoch. I mean, we the fallen angels, um, made it with the daughters of men, and then they started teaching all this forbidden knowledge, makeup, and all this other stuff, technology and war and all this stuff. And you know, that's where these places are where I think Adam and Eve ate from the forbidden, from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. They ate the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. I think that they interacted with these places because a lot of these places, a lot of Native Americans will tell you that they have these places because the portals can communicate. You can communicate with the dead. So people think that they're communicating with loved ones because these things are tricksters. They're going to tell you they're your loved ones. They're going to tell you that they're your grandma and they cooked your favorite pie and all this stuff, right? And it's like, and you're going to believe them. And you're like, oh my God, only my grandma would know that. Well, that's why they're called the Watchers, because they're constantly watching us. They're always watching us, right?
Right.
They can see us, but we can't see them. They exist beyond our perception, right? In that spiritual world around us, they can see us right now. They know everything about us. They can mess with us and all this other stuff, right? That's why
Yep.
people get attachments and all this other stuff. And so I think that they've tricked people into creating places like Stonehenge because magnetic energies kind of swirl in an area where bluestones exist. And I've mentioned this on Doc's show. If you ever want to create a portal, you just put a bunch of bluestones in a circle near like a flowing river or a volcano or something, and you'll probably create some little portal. I don't recommend it because it's necromancy, right, from the Bible.
Yeah, guys, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do it. But I'm just saying, like, that's pretty much the gist of it. And that's why people, when these witches create these little circles and stuff like that, that's what they're doing, right? They're these little covens and stuff, whatever they're called.
Well, let me bring something up to you, and this this could be a whole thing that we talk about some other time in the future, because you brought up Lake Michigan, and so I grew up in one of the points of the Lake Michigan Triangle, Benton Harbor. So I could walk across the street and be at Lake Michigan where I grew up. And I've always said there's something really, really weird about the area. A lot of paranormal activity. My buddy has got some weird photos. Everybody in the area has got a story with something happening and stuff like that. But there's also a lot of big rivers that run into the lake, and there's a lot of people that die. So nobody knows about the Lake Michigan Triangle and stuff like that, but which blows me away because there's been thousands upon thousands of more deaths than the Bermuda Triangle there. So one of these theories that I've been talking about, and you just hit it right on the head, is because it's right in the center of the lake. All these people die, and it's this, they call it a triangle, but it's, the whole circle, all these flowing bodies of water go into Lake Michigan, man. And I think at one point it was a mass ritual site. And there's some connections to Pan, the lower, we all know who Pan is. There's connections to a lot of pagan stuff. It's legit, man. I think it really was a mass ritual site, and that's part of the reason it got washed out.
Well, and I one thing I didn't mention was that, like, when there's certain interactions, physical interactions between the earth and the sun interacting with each other is called harmonics. When the harmonics of the earth interact with the harmonics of the sun, it creates an electromagnetic pulse, and that pulse creates what's called telluric currents. And these telluric currents are electrical energies that flow from the earth. Well, electrical energies have magnetic properties to them. They're electromagnetic energy, right? It's electromagnetic energy. And what happens is these things flow. They come out of streams, rivers, volcanoes. They come out of any kind of faults, fissures, and any kind of crack in the earth. These things come out of, and then they kind of like flow along the earth, just kind of like just imagine wind blowing just kind of all over the place. And what happens when you build a stone circle like the one that's underneath Lake Michigan, you're entrapping that electromagnetic energy, and you're creating a constant vortex of energy that these things can come through. And so, yeah, flowing water. I mean, how is hydroelectric energy created? Water flows, falls down, hits a turbine. The turbine creates electric, energy, and it shoots it up through the cables and all that stuff and out to your house. So any kind of flowing water, anything like that. Anytime someone says they have a paranormal experience, that's the first thing I ask is like, flowing water nearby? Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, there's a fountain, or yeah, as a matter of fact, there's like a river or stream that runs right through it. It's like, that's always the case, dude.
That was the first thing you asked me. And I was like, yeah, I was right next to a creek.
Yeah.
That explains it.
And that's why, man, I mean, but some of these ideas aren't my own. This is like from research of like, I got a couple books back there, man. It's like there's a book called Ley Lines of the UK and US by a guy named Dave Cowan, I believe is his name. There's a book by, oh man, what's the name of that dang book? Robert Temple, called A New Science of Heaven. It's about plasma. So all these ideas that I've come up with have also come from people like them who've helped put the puzzle together, right? And it's like, and I'm like, oh, because dude, I'm past, and no offense to anybody who listens to the show, I'm kind of past paranormal stuff, like, because for me it's like, oh, like I know paranormal exists, like I don't want to stay in that pocket of energy anymore, because like I
Mm.
don't need to argue with people like, oh, aliens exist and does Bigfoot exist? I know for a fact they exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we exist, and like Theo Vaughn said, like we are the aliens, right? Like we're the ones who are odd on this earth. So, and you start to look at like where water came from and all this other stuff, and water came from like it's like a foreign substance to this planet. It's totally weird, and it has a consciousness of its own and all this other stuff. So then you start looking at everything around the world, and it's like, yeah, this is a strange place we live in. So, you know, it shouldn't be a surprise that you start seeing Jersey drones flying, you know, plasmoids flying around in the sky and UFOs and all this stuff. Yeah,
Right.
or Bigfoot or anything like that, because there's a whole world around us that we don't see, you know. And I think that's what all these national forests are for. They kind of, they hide these. I think that they have agreements with these things, like, oh, you know, you guys pretty much can stay in the national forest and do what you do or whatever, but leave us, you know, leave these areas alone or what have you. And yeah, I think, but I do think that they have agreements with them that unfortunately they let them abduct a certain amount of people and all this other stuff. There was an agreement called something in 1956 that
Wasn't it the Eisenhower deal?
yeah, it was the Eisenhower agreement. It's like it starts with a G. I can't ever remember it, but yeah, there's agreements with like, but then in 1979 there was a alleged war because between like Delta forces, you know, at the Dulce base in New Mexico, between uh, Delta forces and like these aliens and stuff, because they basically were like just abducting and doing whatever they wanted to create these hybrids and all this other stuff. So, but yeah, I'm at the point, like I said, where I just don't, you know, I don't. It's like I don't even have to argue with people. I like hearing stories about paranormal and stuff like that, but I'm at the point where I'm like, I want to find out where they're coming from, like what's going on with them and all this other stuff. And when you see stuff like AI starting to take over, man, it's like, again, all this stuff starts to make sense because,
Mhm.
again, they are disembodied. So they need a body. And what is AI doing? AI is creating all these, it's almost creating a digital brain, a nodal neural network of all these different data centers with the project Stargate, right? Or with the Stargate project. I can't remember which one it is. Where they're creating 20 different data centers. And if you think about that, that is a big brain. That's what our brain does. Our brains have these little neural networks and all this other stuff too. And so they're creating this digital brain. And what's happening? We're feeding this digital brain. We're feeding it with our content. We're feeding it with our information. We're feeding it with our questions and our all this other stuff. I mean, the reason, you know, it's insane to me that I get to use Chat GPT for free because it's such a resourceful thing. But we're contributing to that, right? We're helping it learn, and we're helping every time we upload a video or a photo or whatever. These disembodied entities are learning how to be us, and so we're creating this digital god for on behalf of like tech companies and all this other stuff, man. But I don't think it's going to work, and I can get into that in a minute. But
Yeah, it truly is. It truly is wild with AI. So one thing that always comes back to me when even talking about AI is it was about 7 years ago when I was in high school. Uh, for my advanced engineering class, my teacher, the first day we had to write a paper, he gave us an article and it was talking about, all right, do you believe that someday there is going to be a magical program that you can choose John Wayne and then you can choose who's a modern star? I'll just say Zendaya. And then you can say, all right, I want it to be a spaghetti western that takes place in space and the narrator first, James Earl Jones, and you could make any movie you want and stuff like that. And I remember writing that paper, and I was like, no, dude, there's no way that's ever going to happen. Like, oh no, you're not going to be able to make you're not going to make Richard Nixon sing "Toxic" by Britney Spears. You're never going to be able to do that kind of stuff. And it's just insane how, like, in the last 4 years after that, they start putting the stuff out, and I'm like, that was supposed to be impossible. Like, he just gave us this paper just for something to write. It's a good critical thinking exercise, like looking at the technologies and stuff that we have and how fast. I guess he did it knowing how fast technology moves. But as we know, you and I, there's these disembodied spirits. There's all this other stuff that's involved, that manipulating the speed at which we move and how we do things.
Well, again, man, like, this has all been coming. It hasn't been around for 10 years. It hasn't been around for 5 years. It's been around for 40 years, 50 years. So this stuff has been around for a long time. They're just sort of slow dripping out to us. Mm-hmm. An algorithm is a simple algorithm, for example, is a Google search. It's if this, then that language. And so, again, I started out saying that at the beginning of the show, I was trying to go over my background a little bit, but I'm a web designer and I do digital marketing for a living. So I know search engine optimization. I know algorithms. I know all this stuff. I've been doing it for 15 years now. And so a basic algorithm is if this, then that. And that can be as simple as, like, if it's 100 degrees, then turn on the fan. That's a if this, then that program, right? That's pretty simple. So that's how a lot of, like, basic AI programs begin. Now, I know it's much more than that now. There's math involved and all these other things. But what I'm trying to get at is, like, who programs if this, then that? Who tells it what to do? We do. Or human programmers tell it what to do. So I'm not worried about AI. People are, like, worried about AI. I'm not, because we have the power. We have the power over everything. We are the creators of all this stuff in this world. We can pull the plug on it anytime we want. Be like, no. And you saw that. That's what happened in 2020. Everybody was like, at first, everybody was like, oh, this is terrible. And then all of a sudden, people were like, no, we don't really buy it or believe it anymore. And then now it's, like, completely reversed. And now everybody's, like, acting like it didn't exist and all this other stuff. And that's a case in point for what I'm trying to say. All it's doing is, like, AI learns these different patterns, right? It learns data and all this stuff. But where do you get data from? Well, you get data from us, right? So we can stop putting stuff on the internet. We can stop searching ChatGPT and Google and all this stuff. We can stop opting in to them reading our emails and all this stuff. That's why we get Gmail for free. That's why we get all these different platforms for free, is because they're reading all this data. And we willingly say, yeah, you can take our data and do what you want to with it. And that's why we get ads that are targeted specifically everything we say. They're listening to us. That's why we're getting ads. You might send an email about something, and I'll get off this show tonight, and I'll probably have a ton of ads or things on my Instagram feed or whatever based on some of the stuff we're talking about. I'll see something about Lake Michigan on there, et cetera, et cetera. So again, man, we are in charge of the programming. We are in charge of the data. And more importantly, we are the ones who manifest reality, because, like I said at the beginning of the show, we are human. We can manifest, right? So we're the only ones who can vibrate anything into matter. Right? We're the only ones that can do that. None of these disembodied entities can do that. And what's the only way to do that is to convince everybody that this thing is going to be a digital god. This thing is going to be bigger than anything. And so when they go on TV and they say that over and over, what they're doing, just like in 2020, they want you to believe. And when you believe something, when you think, your thoughts are vibrations as well. Everything in our body is a vibration. So your thoughts are literally sending off a signal to the world, telling the world what you want to materialize, what you want to make into matter. And so when they put it out in the news, it's never true. right? When you watch the news is never true. It's never telling you the truth about anything. But they don't care because the importance to them is not the truth. The importance to them is for us to manifest reality. That's all it is. And so we can just at any point go, yeah, no, this isn't going to happen, and just move on about our business, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
AI is just going to be something that we program to sweep our floors, and that's it, right? Like, but
Right.
when you get nerds like Peter Thiel going on there and talking about how he wants to eviscerate humanity and create a digital god and all this stuff, like, I'm not afraid of that dipshit. You know what I mean? Like,
No.
yeah, because he's just one person, and what has to happen is you have to convince the collective consciousness, and they did that in 2020. Man, they think about when you turn on the TV, it's like the death toll was like it's like a ticker on the news. I mean, the rising toll of deaths, and it was like 33,000 infected every second, right? It was like 33 new cases today in South Carolina, 33 new cases today in Michigan, 33 cases, and it was always like 33,000 deaths. Well, they have to do that because there's a third of the fallen angels that fell to earth, and that's who they worship.
Hmm.
So they worship the 33% of fallen angels that fell to the earth. So everything they do is in the number 33. Hillary Clinton had 33,000 emails that were deleted. Every time they want Russia to become the 33rd member of NATO and all that stuff. They're doing this in the name of the 33 of the fallen angels. Okay. So when we started realizing like, oh, this is a scam, like the collective consciousness came together, and like a beam of light just went poof, and it just eviscerated it and it disappeared. That's how it works. And that's what Christ, I think, was trying to say to us, was that we are a unit. God is within us. We have that light flowing through us, that Holy Spirit that's flowing through us. That is the ether. That is the etheric energy that flows through our bodies and connects us all. When we have, and I kind of talked about it on a show I did with like Paranoid American the other day, was like, when I was in high school, there would be rumors about like Marilyn Manson, or, and we didn't have the internet. Well, we kind of did, but it wasn't like it is now. And, somehow everybody knew these little things. Even people in California still thought the same things as people in South Carolina. And I think that was because we're connected on this etheric collective consciousness, right? And I
Hmm.
know, I know it sounds new age to say collective consciousness and Christ consciousness and all that stuff. I get it. People will, argue with me about it and all that stuff in the comments, but it's all, what I'm saying is all the same thing. Christ consciousness, collective consciousness is the Holy Spirit. It is the ether. It is the plasma. It's everything it's the quantum field. It's everything that every kind of name you want to put on it. That's what it is. And so, again, man, these things are just disembodied entities, and they've done this for millions of years, thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, whatever it's been. And they're just really good at tricking people into thinking that this is going to be the new thing or whatever. But we have the power. We always have the power. We will always continue to have the power. And so I'll never ever be worried about AI whatsoever. We're right now we've been tricked into believing that we are um, a consumer of this stuff, and we're not. We're actually more of like a product. We're like helping create this thing, right? And
Uh-huh.
so, but I think again, man, people are getting kind of fatigued about technology and all this stuff, and they're kind of backtracking on it. And people
Yeah,
have gotten back to small town living again, and like, let me farm on my own, and let me do all this other stuff on my own. So
yeah. I
I'll
know
let you jump in, man.
oh, I know my generation because I'm 25. My generation, like we were the last ones to play outside regularly, ride bikes around the town, but we were also like the first one, like some of the first ones to constantly be using computers for everything in school. And it's funny because we're almost anticipated to become this technological generation, and everybody in my generation now we're like, oh, do we really want our smartphones? Like all my friends and stuff, we're all slowly starting to delete social media. If it wasn't for my podcast, I would have zero social media, stuff like that. Like we all want to be farmers. We all just want to stop, go outside, touch grass, and even like my youngest brother's generation, who he could work an iPod by the time he was 2.
Yeah.
I was 10, 11. I could not figure it out, and I got my 2-year-old little brother showing me how to do this. Like, even he is like, man, I'm tired of this technology. Can I just like play music instead? Like, he completely stopped playing video games and all that stuff. He's like, I want to do something like productive. So the burnout is real, and it is starting to piss off, Peter Thiel and all those other big head honchos in the tech world and stuff like that. That's why they have to keep on pumping out TikTok. That's why they keep on trying to, oh, we're going to postpone keep the algorithm going. And it, I get excited whenever I see that they push it. Like, come on, no, we're going to keep on doing it, because it means that we're stopping. They have to. They're doing everything in their power to
Right.
keep it going. And
When you see Peter Thiel and all these guys going on TV, that just means that they're dying. It's a last ditch effort. It's a Hail Mary to try to kind of like convince everybody like this is a good thing. And so good on the guy who asked a question to him the other day about, do you want humanity to survive or to succeed or whatever it was, and he had a weird answer for it or whatever. Good for the guy asking the question, because it's like, yeah, we are starting to get to a point where we want to know. We don't want to be told lies and cover ups and all this other stuff, man. And he created Palantir, right? And yeah, a lot of people know this. This isn't like me dropping some like oh my god, that's crazy knowledge. But like Palantir, the name Palantir comes from Palantiri, which are the seeing stones from Lord of the Rings.
yes,
And Sauron who is like this Moloch type character who uses the seeing stones to watch over Middle Earth, right? Doesn't that sound like a watcher? You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
like, and he serves Morgoth, and Morgoth is like this Satan character, right? And so, what they're trying to do, man, and again, Larry Page, Elon Musk said something about how Larry Page wanted to create a digital god, and he walked out of the room. It's a pretty famous thing he said. So Elon was meeting with Larry Page, and Larry Page said, "No, I wanted to create a digital god." And he's like, "Oh, you don't really mean that?" And he goes, "No, I do." And Larry Page is the co-founder, one of the co-founders of Google, right? And it's like, so now he owns, or he there's I don't know what other companies there's a bunch of different names with OpenAI. I think he helped start and all this other stuff. I think even Elon had a hand in creating OpenAI, so, or Chat
I think
GPT.
so.
Yeah. And so when you look at it like that, when you go, oh, they want to create, Palantir is the company. Palantir wants to collect all of our data and be the seeing stones for who? Nobody's asking them that question. Who are you collecting all this data for? Who is this digital god you're creating this for? Because I do think they are trying to create a digital god. They're trying to get this thing to manifest into reality, because they have to, because all these people wouldn't be rich, they wouldn't be powerful if they didn't sell their souls like that. And I mean that. I'm not just
Yeah,
saying that. I think that they literally were like, "Hey, we'll teach you all about technology and all this other stuff if you help us manifest into reality." So I think that they have to now. They have to, because they're committed to doing that. And so that's why you see these people, they're not backing down on some of this stuff. But yeah, man, and people don't realize this, but in the book of Enoch, um, Enoch called him the Grigori. He called the Watchers the Grigori, and Grigori it comes from the Greek word egregorio, or something along the egregori. I can't ever say the word because it's tongue twister, and that means watcher, and basically that means watcher. So I think that they're trying to create an egregore. That's what an egregore is a thought form. It's a collective thought form. It's like Christmas, or like Valentine's Day or Mother's Day. We've collectively come together as a unit, as a collective consciousness, and said we are going to celebrate this. And you think about it, the entity is kind of the entity of Christmas, not Christmas, the birth of Christ, right? The entity of Christmas, where like buying presents and all this stuff. It used to be just a few weeks out of the year. Now it's like in October you start getting Christmas stuff, right? So the egregore is growing. It's July, you got Christmas in July now, and it's like that egregore continues to grow. And so what I think that they're trying to do by saying this over and over and over again, by saying we're, AI is going to take over and all these jobs and all this other stuff. No, it's not. They want us to believe that, because
Mm-hmm.
if we believe that, our minds will help collectively create an egregore, which is a basically an energy form, and they want that energy form. So we're creating this digital brain, and then with like physically creating the digital brain with like these different servers and all this other stuff, 20 different servers with Project Stargate, and then we're also creating the egregore that's going to inhabit that digital brain, if that makes sense. So they want to create a watcher, dude. If you look at the back of the dollar bill, that's what that is on the top of the pyramid. That's the watcher, and that you know what I mean,
Yeah.
like. And so people are constantly trying to like um, help these watchers get into reality. They've been doing it with hybrids and all this other stuff, and they're trying to get into reality, but they can't, man, because again, we are the guy gave us dominion over the birds and the trees and everything on earth. So we're creators. We're the only ones who can create life. We create all this crap we're looking at right now in our offices. There are all these lights and microphones and all this other stuff. None of this stuff would be possible because all of it's material, right? It's all matter. Something is just harder than is vibrating at a different vibration and all that stuff. So it's all matter. It's all material. But we've molded that material with our minds and with our hands and with our energy and all this other stuff. So again, man, I just think I'm more positive about AI because I just don't believe that, they have any kind of power whatsoever. It's kind of laughable to me, actually, that they think that they can do all this, and they can. And unfortunately, they can do some things because they have the power of the media, and the media is, pushing out these airwaves on these ley lines, and so it's amplifying the signal, it's amplifying this electromagnetic energy, and so it does work to some degree. And you can see it. Again, going back to 2020, what happened when people started waking up and going, wait a minute, and you pulled yourself out of that energy and out of that collective consciousness, and you kind of got yourself outside of that bubble. People would, you're gonna kill us all,
Mm-hmm.
like the people on the inside of that bubble were still like that, you're gonna
It was
kill us all, you're the one, and
it was
now
a bad
everybody's kind
time.
of waking up to it, and it's been dispersed now, so
I can't tell you how many apologies I've gotten over the year, like the last 2 years, man. Because I was, I'm not gonna lie and say there wasn't a moment where I was like scared. Like it was like the first day, I was like, "Oh man, what's happening?" And then I remembered because I had heard about it back in like middle, like August, September of 2019. Because it was, it may have been, it may have been the Confessionals podcast or something like that. He was talking to somebody, was like, "Oh yeah, like no, this stuff's happening right now." I bet the Big Brother tries to do something with this, and then the first day stuff came out. It started on my birthday, and I was like, "Man, I'm supposed to go watch LeBron James and play at the Palace and all this stuff," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm freaking out, like we're gonna die." And then I just instantly remembered that, and I was like, "Oh wait, this is all BS." And I was
it is,
talking to
yeah.
I was talking to my buddy, and he's like, "No," and then like 2 days later, he was like, "Yeah, it's BS," and then everybody shut us out. Like my family basically
Yeah,
shunned me for 2 years. Like I was like, I just want to see and spend time with my grandparents. My family was like, "Oh, you can't go over there. You're going to kill them," and stuff like that. But as the years, like the last couple of years, they're like, Riley, I'm kind of sorry for the way we treated you and stuff like that. I'm like, I forgive you. Like it's not your fault. I just knew from thinking outside of the, not just not believing everything that's told to me.
right.
And that's very hard for people to do nowadays, man. I
Yeah, and that's what I started off the show with, was trying to tell you, trying to explain, like, that's what happens when people are waking up. They don't. It's super lonely because like, you have all this, like, you see things differently now, and you go, wait a minute, like that's happening and this is happening, and then all of a sudden you find yourself like on an island by yourself with your thoughts, and you're ostracized, and you're like, it can be a very lonely place, isolated place for sure. And so again, that was the point of my show, is to kind of help people get a better idea and understanding that there are lots of people that a lot of people are just afraid to talk about it because it goes against the, you know, the sort of the zeitgeist or whatever, the what is it called? They called it something, mass psychosis or whatever they call it. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
that's what it is. It's a mass psychosis, and everybody's kind of caught in that energy. And it's like when you used to see cartoons and there's a big cloud of people fighting in the cartoon, and then you see a person, an arm come out every now and then, all that. Well, what happens when someone jumps out of that cloud? You're just sitting there looking at the fight, and the cloud's still going, right? But you're sitting there looking at it like, oh, these people are crazy. What's going on here? Right? It's like, um, so when you start to see like, oh, it's all manipulation of energy, you know, it's all a game. It's all like designed to lower your vibrations and to get you in a state of fear and anxiety and panic and all this stuff. The best thing that anybody could ever do is to unplug from news and all the other stuff. I don't have Facebook. I don't have any of that. I have Instagram, but it's only to book shows and stuff like that, like to pretty much do what we just did, where, you know, where we talked about, hey, you want to come on the show and stuff like that. Now I do,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I get hooked on it sometimes, and I'll sit there and scroll and everything like that. But I don't engage a lot of times in the negative conversations. And like if someone says something mean, like I just read on a comment somebody posted on a YouTube video I was on, and it was a negative comment, and I was just like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you know, because it's like it's easy to just go, well, screw you, man, you know. But the hard thing to do is to realize that that person might be at a different level of understanding. They might not be on the spiritual level that you are yet, you know.
Mhm.
They're not awake yet. Once they get there, they will get there. You got to plant seeds, like Christ was saying in Matthew 13, in the sower of the seed. He's just like, hey, man, some are going to grow, some of them are going to be eaten by the birds. You just got to plant the seeds, and eventually, you know, they'll bear fruit pretty much, you
Yeah.
know. And that's all I can do. That's all I do with everything now, is like, you know, probably to a fault. Actually, I probably do it too much. I got to probably slow down on it, but like I will plant seeds a lot. I'm like, oh, there's some strange clouds there, or those are some, like my mom, I have this tendency to be like, I told you so. And I don't like that. I got to stop doing that, because I got to be more receptive of when people wake up, to not say, I told you so. You know, like my mom called me and she's like, so this cloud seeding thing, this is a real thing, huh? And I was like, yeah, I just literally told you about that like last week, and you just totally ignored me, but you heard it on Fox News, and now, now you are interested in it, you know? And I shouldn't have did that. I should have been like, yeah, well, let me explain. Here's some things and that. But instead, I was like, I told you so, you know. And I got to learn to not do that, because I'm still bad about that, right? It's like I've been beating the drum for many years now, and I want people to see what's going on. And it's just taking them a long time. I just have to realize that they're on their own journey. They're on their own spiritual journey, you know.
Yeah. It's tough, man. I'd be lying if I said I I didn't play the same song. You know, it is tough sometimes not to be like that. And like I moved to I'm in a completely different area, surrounded by all kinds of new people. So, you know, I'm throwing all this stuff out there because, you know, I want more people to talk to, like in my everyday life, not just hopping on the show and stuff and talking. And it's like, oh yeah, you're right. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah. You should. Now, I was right about this one thing. Are you going to believe me on all this other stuff?
Well, they're
Well, I
not
don't.
there yet. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
just like,
But again,
all
that's
right.
what Jesus was saying, dude. I mean, Jesus was the man, dude. He was the man. You know, like the parable of the sower in Matthew 13 is the best, because he
Mhm.
knew that this was going to happen. You know, his disciples were asking him like, "Why do you speak in parables?" He's like, "Because certain people can't see and certain people can't hear. Let those who have ears hear, and let those who have eyes see." You know, let them, you know, that kind of stuff. Like he was on it, dude. He knew that you can't wake everybody up. You can only say what you say, and if they take the information or not, then they take it. And that I love that, man. You know, in the parable of the weeds, you know, he was just talking, and they asked him, they're like, well, what do we do about all the bad people who are on earth? And he's like, when the angels come, let them harvest them. Let them harvest the weeds. You know what I mean? Like, don't worry about it, because if you try to take out all the bad, right now because the bad is so intertwined with the good wheat, like with the wheat that's growing. Like let's just say we're the wheat
Hmm.
and there's bad intertwined with us. If you take out that weed right now, it'll kill the wheat. And he said, don't worry about that. Just keep growing. And then when the time comes for the harvest, the
Hmm.
angels will come in and take care of the weeds. And so like I love that kind of stuff because it's like I don't worry about it, man. I don't worry about any of this stuff anymore. I just let God take control. I mean, we have no say so in what goes on in anything. We have free will, and as long as we're doing God's will with our free will, we will continue to succeed and make money and do things good for positive in life, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I didn't mean to take it on like a religious kind of a track there, but I guess that kind of is what it is, though. It's like a
Hey,
spiritual warfare thing,
welcome to Midwest Mythos, brother.
right? Yeah.
This happens every single time. Oh, I'm not gonna say every single time, but 95% of the time, it was not the intention to bring the Lord into it, but it happens, and I'm here for it every time. And I'm gonna start using the parable of the weeds more often because I've had a lot of people ask me, about current geopolitical stuff going on, and what do you think we should do? And I'm always just like, oh, well, it don't matter. God's got a plan for all of it. Jesus is going to come, and they're like, oh, but if I start using the parable as you just did, I've more people will probably more receptive to it, and they'll be able to understand it more. Because when I say, oh, God's got it covered, you would understand that, but somebody that does not know the Lord, they're gonna.
Well, I will say this because it's like when I went down the conspiracy rabbit hole, I was very like political. I was all like, oh, you see what they're doing politically, and I was always like, they're gonna get when there's a Republican in, they're gonna get Lois Lerner for the IRS scandal. When they're gonna get the Benghazi people, and they're gonna get the Russia hoax people and all this other stuff. And I would keep going on and on. Every couple years, I was like, they're gonna get them, and nobody's ever gotten. The Epstein files, nobody's ever gotten. Right? It's like you can sit there and stew in it all you want and just hope that, and you get mad about it. I know they're gonna research or investigate election fraud. And you get worked up on it. I know. I was one of them.
Same here.
But it's easy. Once you read something like the parable of the weeds, you go, it's not for me to worry about. Like, why
Hmm.
am I wasting my energy with that? Like God is going to take care of all of that. We don't have to be the ones to worry about when that's going to happen and all this other stuff. I want more than anybody for the Epstein files to be released and for people to be brought to justice. But like Jesus said, let the angels come and take care of the weeds. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it for my own personal, like bad things happen. And I hope justice is brought to everybody from the IRS scandal to the Benghazi stuff, to the assassination attempts and all this other stuff. I was typically a conservative, I guess you could say. I kind of still am, but I'm more of like a free thinker, independent. I don't really adhere to any politics or politicians or anything like that. But I do see that there was a lot of evil being done on one side, and there was probably a lot being done on the other side too.
Yeah.
Um, but again, you just realize that some of these people serve the same master. It's not our master. It's not our God. It's not the God of love and light. They serve the dark one, the dark God, right? Their God, not our God. So when you see things like "In God We Trust" on the dollar bill, is that the same God that you and I in God we trust, or is that the in God they trust? You know what I mean? Because it's got an all-seeing eye. They have a watcher on the top of a pyramid, and what are pyramids? Just like I mentioned earlier, just another X point. It's a portal, right? This is like that's where they got all the information from. And I was trying to tell and it's probably too early to talk to my kids about some of that stuff, but I gave them $1, and then I started immediately. It was kind of on my soapbox. If I'm like, what do you think that pyramid's for? And they're like, I don't know. We got pyramids in the United States. And I was like, no, we don't. I just kind of was like, I probably shouldn't do stuff like that because they're too young. But it's like
Hmm.
I am at the point where I'm like, is it too young to teach them about spiritual warfare? I don't know. I think it's very important for them to learn about the war that's going on around us. Like, people don't know it. We don't hear it in church. When you and I go to church, man, they're not talking about this stuff. They don't teach us that there's disembodied entities who are trying to get into your body. You know what I mean? It's like they talk about demons and all this stuff, but it's kind of like a very vanilla way of talking about it at church, you know?
It, I will say, I agree with that. So my wife and I are the worship leaders at our church, and I got to step back a little. I have to remember my environment, but I do bring that stuff up, and it tends to make people pretty uncomfortable
It does. Yeah.
because my
Well,
heart wants everybody to know and be prepared. Like I just I don't want to see anybody not equipped, I guess. So like you can't equip yourself unless you know what it is you're going up against. It's
but everybody, and I'm starting to realize this more and more. Again, everybody's on their own journey thing, and it's like maybe it's not for us to decide who should learn what and what they should know at this point and all this stuff,
yes.
because you and I still came to the information. It was a long journey to get here, but we came to this information, and like looking back now, I'm like, oh, everything that happened in my life was designed to help me learn that. Right? It was like every single thing that happened to me,
Yeah.
every deployment I was on, every breakup I was at, every breakup I had, every bad relationship, every bad teacher, every bad coach, everything that happened to me negatively was designed to teach me a lesson about how this all works, good versus bad, light versus dark, all this stuff. So, who am I to say what they should talk about in church, I guess? But it's also like, it just does suck because I sit there and I'm like, oh, okay. Like they'll brush right up against the subject and then they'll come back.
Yeah.
They won't go. There's a line that won't be crossed. And it's like, you can't, if you do cross that line, then people kind of look at you weird. And, maybe it's a bad thing that I'm trying to wake people up, I guess, maybe part of God's plan is for me to just drop little seeds of information for people and just let that be that. But I think that, again, I'm starting to realize more and more that it's not, none of this is in my control. It's all in God's hands. And it just took me a long time to get there and understand that. Like I used to drink wine or beer or whatever and watch politics on TV, and I'd watch Fox News and watch debates and all this stuff like it was sports,
Mhm.
and then I realized like it was lowering my energy, and that was just my journey. It was like, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. This is something else. This is beyond me, because I can't control any of this stuff. This is being acted out in some sort of way for some sort of reason that I don't understand. So
Yeah, I agree, man. And that's a tough lesson to learn. And I did learn it this like a week or two ago. I did say something, and then I felt like it was the right time. Like I felt like I was supposed to say it, and then a couple people talked to me. I was like, I don't disagree with what you said at all. I think you're right, but not like you said, everybody's on their own journey and stuff. And then I thought about it for a second. I was like, that's why God gave me my podcast, like to
yeah,
talk. Like
an outlet. Yeah,
this is the place. This is the platform for that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I do like I did have to pray for forgiveness and like, but I took it as a lesson of, all right, not like you said, we're on that journey. Like it took me 20 years to even believe in God. So yeah,
it's something that everybody has to go through to.
yeah.
I think it's part of the reason why we're here is to learn that love and light is the way. Like when people have near death experiences, they always say that. They always say when they see God or this bright, beautiful light that colors they've never seen before and all this stuff, and they're standing there with God, and again, God is a bright ball of light. Essentially, I don't know how to describe that, but he's a panoramic screen appears in front of him, and he's giving him a life review. And at the end of the life review, he's like, you feel all the things that you caused other people. Every time you made someone mad, you feel that. Every time you made someone cry, you feel that. Every time you made someone happy, you feel that. And at the end of it, God asks you, he says, don't worry about it. The only thing that everybody says at the end of it is, God asks you if you learn how to love. And that's the most important thing, is to learn how to love. And I think that's seems to be what we're here. It's like a school, that we're here to learn something, that we're here to learn how to love.
Mm-hmm.
And that just feels right, man. When you start doing that, you start getting all these signs and synchronicities that happen in your life. You start seeing angel numbers everywhere. You start, butterflies start following you around, and weird things start happening to you. It's because you're living in that vibration of love and light. And the Holy Spirit gets excited, and he's saying, yeah, this is it. This is the way. Keep going that way. You know what I mean? And it's hard to ignore when that stuff starts happening, because it comes like a flood of like, it's like, what is this? That's weird. That's a weird coincidence. These weird coincidences can't keep happening over and over and over and over and over again, literally all day, every day. And so it just means to me that, I'm on the right path, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And if someone out there is listening and you're getting synchronicities and stuff like that, and that, again, that could be just as simple as like, you're listening to a song, and then all of a sudden you start seeing the lyrics, so, like in front of you, like, um, when you're reading a book and you read a word, and then you hear that word on the radio at the same time, that's a synchronicity. Or like if you're listening to music, and then all of a sudden it feels like the billboards are coming to life around you. That happened to me. That's a synchronicity. If you're having a conversation with someone about God, you and I having a good conversation right now, I might get off this podcast and start seeing 444 everywhere, and 333 and 222 and 111 and all these other angel numbers. And that's just, to me, that just means that that's God and the Holy Spirit telling me that I'm on the right path, and to keep going down that path and keep pulling at those threads and seeing where that goes. Right. It's
Right.
like I'll give you an example real quick. I feel like I'm kind of getting long winded here, but it's like, I was moving from one city to another where I live now, and we were looking for a house. Found this house, and I did a Google search on how long it took from our house, where we were renting, to where we would buy. And it was like 44.4 miles exactly, right? And it's like, I just took that as another sign. Some people might think that that's nothing, but it's it's a matter of how you receive. It's not up to anybody else to determine what that is. Like, whenever I cut grass, I have a couple acres, I'm out cutting grass and stuff. There's a butterfly and a dragonfly that follows me around every single time I cut grass, and it's the same ones. Right? And they followed me last year too. And to me, it feels like that's God speaking to me in some way, and it feels differently for everybody. Some people get, angel numbers, like I said. Some people get, it's however God thinks you can hear the message or accept the message. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you start living in that light and that love, you'll start getting those things, and it can become pretty weird. It's like, oh my God, this is very strange, but he will speak to you in his own way, in whatever way it is. And so if I try to tell my wife, like, oh, there's butterfly and dragonfly follow me around all the time, she just thinks that that's a butterfly and dragonfly following me around. But me, I personally take it as like something else, whatever that is, something else. Right.
Yeah.
So,
I feel that, like, because I know that God can do anything and operates differently for everybody. Like, me, I'd probably be like, yeah, it is just a butterfly and a dragonfly. But if that is how God, like, communicates with you, who am I to say that and stuff like that? Because, like, with me, how he does for, like, me, it's not so much seeing like synchronicities and stuff like that. It's conversations with just people, like, such as like this one right now. Like, or I'll have a conversation with somebody earlier in the day, or like a week before, or I'll be like praying for something or reading over something, and then all of a sudden I'm having a conversation with somebody, and like it just like confirms. I'm like, all right, this is the path. This is God speaking through whoever, like you in this situation, to me. Like, all right, you got it, Riley. You're on the path. Just because for me, I'm very skeptical and just like also like worrisome about things. Like, oh, am I discerning this correctly and stuff? Like, so for me, it is all right. A conversation. A conversation is very hard for me to put off as just a mere coincidence, even though I don't believe in coincidences. So
Yeah, well, and then, but you start looking beyond that, and you go, "Oh, I was supposed to book to be on you were supposed to book me to be on your show at this time of night on this day or whatever the reason to hear something that I have to say, whether that's like one little thing or a big thing or whatever." And it's like, oh, I just had a conversation about this the other day. Like whenever I went on Doc's show and he was talking about how you guys all went out into the woods and then I said that about the creating the circles and you can create with the stones, you can create like a little portal or whatever. It was like he had to hear that message too at that exact time for whatever reason, and it resonated with him. It was like
mm,
um, and I think that that's true with everybody. People usually hear when someone in the form of conversation, like my wife will read something in the Bible, and then all week there'll be things that are happening that she just read about or whatever the case is, and it's like
yep.
those are signs that she gets all the time. And our dog Penny died, and we had Penny for 16 years. And then my wife was reading the night that Penny died. My wife was reading a Stephen King book. She's a big Stephen King fan. She's a big book fan in general, but she was reading a Stephen King book, and it was not even about dogs, but it was a little a little paragraph in the book, and it was talking about Penny and how Penny was such a good dog and all this other stuff. It's like, that's when my wife was like, okay, something that's not cool. That's not a coincidence. That can't be a coincidence, right? It's like, but the important thing is what I'm trying to say is like, yeah, you hear it. God will speak to you in whatever way that you understand it. It's not up to us to decide what that is. I could just be doing something. I go, I have an epiphany. Like I had Dean Cain on my show recently, the Superman, right? And it was like when he came on my show, I was listening to him talking, and he said something, and I was like I had to hear it from him for whatever reason. It was so
Mm-hmm.
weird. It was sort of a weird thing that I had to hear it from him, and I was like, oh, so God uses everybody to speak to other people and to um, I think that's why like my show, if you could say that there's any kind of success with it, I think it's because I am open to doing God's will. Like I am here for him to use me in whatever way he wants to use me. And I always feel hypocritical saying that, because I do have faults and flaws and all this stuff, right? It's like I still do things that I'm not supposed to. I still drink from time to time. I still cuss. I still do a lot of things that you're not supposed to. I'm not a perfect person. So whenever I say stuff like that, I'm not coming from it from like I'm holier than you or anything. It's coming from like a place of like, I really do feel that way. I feel like God is using me for some reason, because I can't explain some of the things that I say, some of the things that I read, some of the things I learn, and some of the shows I go on, how I've been able to get on them and all these other things. I can't explain that. I can't explain success of a podcast or anything like that to anybody, because I don't understand it, because I don't think I'm very good at this or very good at that or whatever the case is. So for me personally, man, it's hard for me to understand. But I've heard preachers say that my whole life, that they felt called to do this, or they felt like God's using them for whatever you're doing ministry at the church and stuff like that. It's a calling. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's a real thing. That's not like something people were making up. But I think, and this isn't against church. This isn't against preachers or anything like that. It's like, but sometimes I think it's important for people who preach to say that what I just said. Like, hey, I still cuss. I still drink. I'm not a perfect person.
Mm-hmm.
We always try to look at preachers as these people who are just, they're perfect. You can, they know all the answers to everything and all this other stuff. They don't know anything. Doctors, by the way, don't know anything. Nobody knows anything about what's going on.
Yeah.
Like when you tell a doctor your symptoms, he's like, okay, well, let me go. I'm gonna go talk to my nurse about this. Well, he's going back to Google some stuff and see what's going on too. Like I think it's important that people you don't have to have all the answers for everything. You don't have to be the perfect guy. If you just let God use you in whatever way you can, then you could still reach a broad audience with what you're saying, even if you don't have a podium or a platform like a preacher does or like a podcaster does. You can spread the message of Christ just by like going to Chick-fil-A one morning and being nice to everybody and open the door for people and stuff like that, where two or more gathered in my name, there shall I be. So
Amen to that, brother. Amen to that. I had I, I had a lady come up to me at church, and she heard about my new job, and the first thing that she said to me is, Riley, I don't think you understand how big of a blessing that job is for you. And I was like, yeah, I know it's going to help, financially help my family out a lot more than my previous job. It's going to help my mental health. It's going to help my physical health because it's a physically demanding job. And I'm just like, yeah, it is going to be good. And she's like, no, Riley, do you know how many people you're going to interact with every single day? Like, even just saying hello to somebody, or like you said, opening the door, you're going to be able to plant seeds, let people know about God. Like, she's like, you don't even have to say, oh, hey, do you know Jesus or anything like that? Like it says, your, how does it go? Your, your love, your love in Christ will be shown through the light of Christ in you will be shown through your actions for him. Like, you don't have to, hey, do you know about Jesus today? Just the hello, and the Holy Spirit can work with that simple hello.
yeah, dude, it's incredibly important. And she's right. You will be able to literally go door to door and affect people uh, in the name of Christ, right? In the name of that light and that love. And that's just like, hey, ma'am, how are you today? It might, an old lady that you deliver a package to, or whatever it is, whoever you interact with, that lady might not have anybody come see her for, 2 weeks, but
Mm-hmm.
you come every day and you say, hi, how are you? And things like that, that you're putting light in her life, in some way. So that's amazing. I'm glad that you're going to be able to do that for sure. And that's a great way of looking at it.
Yeah, man. I was just thinking worldly. I was just, better job. I had insurance. I can get my teeth fixed. All this kind of stuff. And I wasn't thinking about that. Then stuff like last night, where I was only supposed to be out for like 9 hours. I was out for 13 and a half, and at one spot my device and everything crashes. So I'm sitting there talking with this dude for 10 minutes on his front porch while I'm sitting here trying to get my
Yeah,
little
but you had that had to happen.
right. And
That
like
had to happen.
the dude, he was a real old dude. So I don't, maybe, like you said, maybe that's the first interaction that dude's had with
Right.
somebody in weeks, and we were sitting there laughing it up. And I was like, I don't know you. I don't even know your name because the name on this package isn't you. But, you know, we had a good time. It's funny how God works. It really is.
Man, I'm telling you. I mean, the fact that I'm sitting here talking to your audience and being able to run my mouth and just say things, and like it's incredible to me, man. And people will ask me sometimes that same question. They're like, how do you know this, or how do you? And I go, I don't know, man. I don't even know why I'm doing this. I don't know, like, if you would ask me 2 years ago if I'd be podcasting and have any kind of success at it, I would have told you no. Just not even a thought. Just so it's weird to me. It's
Mhm.
weird how it is strange how God definitely works in mysterious ways when it comes to things like that. And it's funny because like now now that I'm more, I guess you could call it enlightened, spiritually aware, awake, whatever you want to call it. The more I become that, the more I start hearing all the things that I've been told my whole life that start to make sense. Like we just said with the, being used for God's will and the vessel for God's will and all this stuff. It's like, I've heard these things my whole life, but it never registered to me until now. Like, oh, that it's true. It makes sense. Like you start to find out, especially the older you get, that man, there's a lot of wisdom in the Bible, and it's true. It's all true. It's all real. Like you just
Yeah.
hear it when you're a kid. You hear it over and over. You hear things like birds of a feather flock together all the time as well. And now you understand when you get older, like, oh yeah, birds of a feather do flock together, because it's like, like attracts like. If you're negative, you're going to hang around negative people. If you're positive, you're going to hang around positive people, that kind of stuff. So, you're all those sayings that we've heard our whole lives, all of them have some validity, or a lot of validity, not some validity to them, but a lot of them come from the Bible, like I said, man. And, as I get older, it's becoming more and more evident. So,
Yeah. Well, brother, I know we both got some stuff going on later this evening and stuff. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you one more time?
yeah. Thank you again, man. Like I said, being able to, you mentioned a while ago, like it always ends with the Lord, talking about the Lord and Christ and all this, God and all this other stuff. It's like, um, nothing I talk about is intended to go in that direction, but it always ends up in that direction. It's always like light and love and all this other stuff. So I'm extremely grateful to be on your awesome platform in front of your audience talking about these things, because even if it's just one person that has to hear something, that's all that matters. Even if that person's you, then that's all that matters to me. If it's 100 people or 1,000 people, man, I'm just blessed to be able to do this. I've been on shows like Tinfoil Hat, where right after the show released, I'd got a bunch of emails, and I was just so shocked, because it's like, oh, like what I say matters. And I mean that literally. It matters. It materializes, it has, words can affect people's lives. And so when you speak things to someone, when you have the ability, like you're doing, going door to door and affecting people, you are literally changing their vibrational state by saying something nice to them, by saying hello to them, by briefly holding their hand or touching their hand, or just saying hi to them, or giving them a smile or whatever. So I'm blessed that I can come on here and do this. And again, man, it's just, I feel like such a phony even saying some of that stuff, because I know how imperfect I am. But anyways, yeah, you guys can, thank you again for having me, man. And you guys can find me at the Awakend Podcast.com. That's where you can find my Spotify links and Apple links and all this other stuff. I have a YouTube and a Rumble that I'm trying to build up right now. So if you guys are listening, please head over to YouTube and Rumble and follow the show. I'm at a few hundred followers now. I'd like to get it to about 1,000. That would make me pretty happy. But I haven't done a YouTube presence, and there's reasons why I haven't done that. But I did figure that I should just go ahead and start doing it, because I do need to reach more people on those platforms as well. So I only have a couple, 2 or 3 videos now on there. So if you guys want to follow me on YouTube, I'd appreciate that. Also, if you enjoyed the conversation we're having today, do both of us a favor. Go to Midwest Mythos and hit the follow button. Go to the Awaken Podcast, hit the follow button, and also listen to a couple episodes if you want, or just hit the fast forward button on a couple episodes a couple times, and it'll unlock the ability to give a 5-star review. And those 5-star reviews really go a long way. So if you don't mind, give my show, give the Midwest Mythos Podcast a 5-star review. Those reviews help us skirt around the algorithms, and it puts our content in front of literally thousands of more people by giving us reviews, by commenting on our shows and things like that. So please do that. That will really help us out in a huge, huge way, more than money in some regards, to be honest with you. So please give reviews and all of the sharing and commenting and all that stuff. So Roddy, thank you, man. I appreciate this. It's been awesome. Thank you for letting me just run my mouth.
Hey, anytime you want, brother. Thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. I had a blast. Like we were talking about before the mics even got on. Like, oh, what are we going to talk about? Spitball a couple things, and we'll just see where it goes. And
yeah, for sure.
I couldn't be happier with where it went and just the conversation we had. It was a great time again, and God bless you, brother. And all that
God
you
bless you,
do.
man.
And I'll make sure that when I post this, I'll have all your links and stuff down in the bio below on the YouTube. I'll tag you on it. So all you guys got to do when you watch this YouTube video, all you got to do is just hit that little @ that's right next to the title. Hit that subscribe button, because like you said, that helps us out a lot. It more than money most of the time. And I appreciate every single one of you guys. And, same old thing every week. If you or anybody you know would like to be a guest on the show, you had a crazy encounter with something, or, you just got a good topic that you'd like to talk about, or you've deep dive researched into, or maybe you just got some funny, interesting hometown legend that you want everybody to know, you can find me at Midwest Mythos at podcast at outlook.com, or just hit that link tree down below, fill out that, or slide in my DMs at Midwest Mythos on Instagram. That's the best place to get a hold of me, honestly. And with that being said, guys, God bless you all, and I'll catch you all next week. Have a good one. Bye.